and this is part 1 of Behind the Lyrics. We're going to jump straight into Control, which was our first single that we released in kind of peak lockdown in 2021. Fun little fact, when I wrote the lyrics to this song, I had a pretty bad accident where I came out of a taxi a bit too quickly, slipped on some leaves, up into the air, straight onto my butt, could not sit down for about 6 months. So I was on a lot of, painkillers, and I was in a lot of pain. Let's start off with our writing process as a band. So the boys will put down the instruments, like the bass, the guitar, and the drums, and then I'll put melody and the lyrics on top. The lyrics I put down will be very placeholder. They won't actually mean anything at all. They just kind of sound nice, either in my mouth or just with the music. Example of that was in Control with 35, which is what the whole song centers around now, but that actually started with Dirty Fly. And I don't know if I was channeling some kind of Courtney Love grunge vibes or just the sheer amount of pain I was in, but yeah, Dirty Fly is what kicked off that whole 35 lyric. Once I got my placeholder lyrics down, I then come up with what I want to write about. The song was actually called Control before I put any lyrics or melody to it. This was Ben's naming of the track. Often it will be just things he sees in his room and like really random words, but Control was what he named this track, and I ran with it. Being the die-hard feminist that I am, I decided to write it about the control of women and the patriarchy. There were lots of things influencing me at the time, particularly a poem written by Camille Rainville, which Cynthia Nixon from Sex and the City kind of narrated. It's called Be a Lady, They Said, and it is just about the hypocrisy of how women are supposed to act, how they're supposed to behave, how they're supposed to look, what they're supposed to do with their lives. If you're not familiar with this poem, I'm sure you're familiar with the Barbie movie and America Ferrera's monologue in that, which is essentially the same thing. Another influence for me is Taylor Swift's documentary, Miss Americana, where she talks about hitting that age of 35, and in the music industry or in the media, you're kind of done. If you're a woman, you hit 35, you're done. No one wants to hear you anymore, no one wants to see you anymore. I'm also a big It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia fan, and there was an episode on at the time, Old Lady House, and they talk about if you're a man, you're born, you die. If you're a woman, you're born, and then you become old. So it is kind of that mix of what society expects on women, what we expect of women. Also, they hit their kind of peak and they're done for. The person speaking these lyrics is someone speaking from the resistance. It could be a friend, family member, but they're trying to wake you up. They're trying to get you to understand that if you go down these paths, if you listen to these narratives, you're just going to be really unhappy. So for verse 1, for example, the first couple of lines talk about marriage. I like to put double, triple meanings in songs. So the lyric, your only worth is borrowed, old and blue, is marriage, but actually it means, if you go down this path, you're going to be used up. You're going to grow old and just be unhappy. Then following on is talking about image and saying, cameras and media and, magazines, they're telling you to look beautiful, but actually it's all just a distraction from being your badass self, from being who you can really be. Don't get caught up in looking beautiful, just, you are beautiful. Moving on to the bridge, which is a lot of repeated lyrics, and I always kind of pictured it like some kind of army cadet of where they're shouting at us, know your place, stay in line, be forgotten, smile, 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 like this mantra that just seems to be drummed into us, don't take up space, just smile, look pretty, stay in line, don't say anything wrong. That's really what those lyrics are about. It's not a happy song. It's really just commentary on just what women and girls are being told and being brought up to think. And what the media, what everybody, it's not pointed at men in any way, shape or form. It's everybody, anyone kind of just having these expectations on women and pushing us down into making ourselves smaller and not fulfilling really what we're all super capable of, which is being badasses. So that's a little insight into our single Control. If there's a song that you want to know more about, let us know in the comments.